So on this video, I'm going to attempt to teach you everything that you need to know on Unit 4 so far, which is reviewing all the different forms of writing equations, okay? So the title is right here, and the first thing to do would be to, let's go over the notes, the things that you need to know in this section. So you need to know the slope formula. We all know that the slope formula is m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we also need to know the three different forms of equations. Again, the form of an equation is just the way it's organized, okay? So we have point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. There's standard form, which is where you have x's and y's on the left side of the equal sign and the number by itself on the right side. And we also have slope-intercept form, the one that we're probably more comfortable with, y equals mx plus b. So it would be great for you guys to memorize all this. I would love for you guys to memorize all this, but in reality, it's not necessary because it's written on the wall right here on the board. It has all this for you, okay? But I do for sure need you to understand how these different forms work and why they're organized and why they're called in this manner. Again, the word form is the way it's organized. So why do we call slope-intercept form slope-intercept form? Because when you have y by itself equals mx plus b, you could clearly see the m and the b. You could see the slope and the y-intercept. That's why they call it slope-intercept form. Because when you have y by itself, you could see the slope, the rise over run in front of the x, and the b values of your y-intercept. That's why they call it slope-intercept form. Why do we call this one point slope form? Because when it's in this form, when it's organized this way, you could see a point, the x1, y1, that's an actual coordinate. Whatever you see here, if there's a 3 here, then your x value is 3. If there's a 5 there, your y value is 5, and that's a coordinate. That's a point. And the slope is the fraction that's out here in front of the parenthesis. So they call it point slope form because you could see the point x1, y1, and you could see a slope. Do you understand why they call it point slope form? Yeah? Okay, good. And we understand why they call it slope-intercept form. And standard form, well, it's not as nice as the other two, but standard form is great when you have x and y on the left side and the number by itself on the right side. It's great when I ask you to find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. To find the x-intercept, you set y equal to 0 and solve. To find the y-intercept, you set x equal to 0 and solve. Hopefully, we're comfortable with standard form and slope-intercept. This is the most recent one that we need to work on, need to memorize, okay? So what if I asked you to write an equation given the following information? Let's say the first problem says a line has a slope 2/3 and crosses the y-axis at 5. So here we go. Hopefully you guys wrote it down. If we look at this, number one, what do they give us? They want us to write an equation, but what do they give us? The what? The slope and where it crosses the y-axis. So what does that really mean that they're giving us the y-intercept, right? So they're giving us, technically they're giving us an m value. So m equals 2/3. They're giving us a slope and they're giving us a b value, b equals 5, the y-intercept. So if they give you a slope and a y-intercept, what form do you think out of these forms over here, which one do you think is the best one to use if they give you a slope and an intercept? Slope-intercept form. Do you guys see that? It's pretty easy, right? So if they give you a slope and an intercept, then go ahead and write it in slope-intercept form. So what would that be right here? That would be y equals mx plus b. mx plus b. So replace the m and the b with the values that they are. Y equals m 2/3 x plus b is plus 5. And we are done. That's your slope-intercept form equation. So why did we choose to write it in y equals mx plus b form? Because it made more sense. They gave you a m, they gave you a b, so write in y equals mx plus b, right? Now, they could have said your line passes through or has a slope 2/3 and crosses the y-axis at 5. They could have given you this information and they could have said, write it in standard form, right? So if they say standard form, even though you want it in standard form, I would still start with slope and y-intercept. I would still write it like this, and then once it's in this form, then you could change the way it looks into whatever form you want. So if they did say standard form, you would not want a fraction, so you'd multiply everything by 3, and then you'd move your x to the left side, then you'd have your x's and y's on the left side equaling a number. Does that make sense? Okay. But right here, they don't say any form. They just say write an equation. So obviously, if they give you a point, and if they give you a slope and they give you a y-intercept, then you would write it in slope-intercept form. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 says a line passes through the point, so they're giving you a point and they're giving you a slope. So point slope form. It's that easy. Like, what are they giving you? Oh, they're giving you a point, they're giving you a slope. So which one are you going to use? You're going to use point slope form. Okay. So we do have to get comfortable with point slope form. Let's get comfortable with it by beginning by writing it down. Point slope form. What is point slope form? It's y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1 close parenthesis. Now, it's kind of like slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, but instead of y, you got y minus y1. You do have equals mx, but instead of mx, it's m parenthesis x minus x1, and there is no b. Now, how are we going to use this form? Whenever you use point slope form, I recommend you guys rewrite it, but with blank spots. Y minus blank spot equals blank spot parenthesis x minus blank spot, like that. And again, take the information that they gave you, that the slope is 4, the m is 4, and they also give you a point, which means x1, y1. And now you could easily plug in your y1 right here, which is 3. 3 is going to go right there. The m is clearly 4, so 4 goes right there where the m's at. So everybody put a 4 right there. And the x1 is negative 2, so that negative 2 goes right here where the x1 is at, so put a negative 2 right there. And we're done. I mean, the only other thing that you could do to make it look nicer is change the minus minus to plus plus. And here's your point slope form equation. Y minus 3 equals 4 parenthesis x plus 2. It's not bad, right? I mean, I gave you a point, I gave you a slope. It makes total sense. I give you a point, I give you a slope. Go ahead and do point slope form. You just plug in your x1, y1 right there, and your slope right there. And that's exactly what we did. Now, even if they would have said, here's your information, the line passes through this point and that slope, and if they said write it in standard form, I would still do exactly what I did here, and then I would worry about changing this to standard form or changing this to slope-intercept form. But they didn't say any specific form. They just said write an equation. There it is. There's your equation. Like I said, if they would have said write it in slope-intercept form, y by itself, well, you wouldn't want the parentheses. So how would you get rid of parentheses if there's a number out here in the front? Yeah, you distribute 4 times x, 4 times 2. That's if you wanted to change it to a different form. Cool? Do you guys want to try that for funsies or what? Yeah? So like, what if I would have said, write it in, let's say, slope intercept. Okay, so if they did say write it in slope intercept, like right here, they didn't say anything. They just said write an equation, and we did. There's your equation. But if they specifically said, I want it in slope intercept form, that means y by itself, y equals mx plus b. Well, you know that slope intercept form, look at the notes over here. Slope intercept form doesn't have parentheses, like this one has parentheses. So if you want to get rid of the parentheses, you're going to have to distribute the slope. So if I did want to change this to slope intercept, I would have to distribute that slope of 4. So y minus 3 equals 4 parenthesis x plus 2. I would distribute 4 times x, that's 4x. 4 times 2, that's 8. And I bring down the equal sign, bring down y minus 3. And then I could get y by itself by simply doing what? Plus 3 and plus 3. So my slope-intercept form equations, y equals 4x plus 11. So that's slope-intercept right there. Slope-intercept. And even if I wanted to change this slope-intercept into, let's say, standard form, where you have x's and y's on one side and the number by itself on the other, well, for standard form, all you have to do is subtract 4x here and subtract 4x there, and it's in standard form, right? If I wanted it in standard form, and I'm going way off target here. So if I wanted to change y equals 4x plus 11 into standard form, I could simply subtract 4x, and I would now have negative 4x plus y equals 11. And that right there is standard form. On the wall, on the board right here, I write my success criteria, and there's a reason why I put slope formula first and then point slope form. This is not the first one we learned. We actually learned standard form first, then slope intercept, and the very last one we learned was point slope form. So I put these out of order in the way we learned them, but I put point slope form first because once you find the slope, you could use the slope and the point that you used right here in the formula. You could use that to start with point slope form, and then you could change this point slope form to the other forms by distributing the slope. Okay, it'll make more sense right now, but I did put it in that order because it's, well, let me actually just show you an example of that. Let's write this down. Let's say, okay, guys, so jot this down. A line passes through, and I just made this up right now. I don't know how ugly this is going to be. The line passes through the coordinate negative 5, 6, and the coordinate 3, negative 7. So from the origin, you could go negative 5, negative 5, 6 is a dot up here. And then from the origin, go 3, negative 7 down here, and there's your line. But that's not the way we're going to do it. We want to write an equation in all three forms. Okay, so let's write that down. We want to write the equation in all three forms. Okay, so what's the only thing we know how to do right now with 2 points? Yeah, the slope formula, right? And that's why on the success criteria, I start out with slope formula being the first piece of knowledge that you need. Because if I give you 2 points, you're going to use that slope formula to find the slope. Okay, so let's actually do that. M equals, I'm not going to show the whole formula. It's just, we already know it should be y2. Actually, I'll show it. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. And of course, this is an x value. That's a y value. That's an x value. That's a y value. This is your first point. That's why we put 1, 1. This is your second point. That's why we put 2, 2. When you use the formula, do the division first, then the subtractions. And then you plug in your y2 value. Upper left, what is y2? Negative 7. How about top right? What do I plug in? 6. How about bottom left? What do I plug in? 3. How about bottom right? What do I plug in? Negative 5. Excellent. And of course, the minus minus change the plus plus. So we have a negative 7 minus 6. What is negative 7 minus 6? Negative 13. That's ugly. And on the bottom, what's 3 plus 5? 8. So that, yeah, this was a winner. This was a disgusting line that we created here. So anyway, what do we have now? We have an M, and we also have, do we have a B value? No. What else do we have? We have points, right? You have 1 point, 2 points. So you have a point and you have a slope. If you have a point and a slope, what form are you going to use? Point slope form, right? So let's use point slope form. Again, that's y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. Now, as I was saying it, I left them blank. Yeah, the x1 is in here, the y1 is right there, and the m is right here. So I expect you to write down the formula and then use the blank spots to plug in your values. So always start with y minus blank spot equals blank spot parenthesis x minus blank spot. That way you could easily plug in your m, which we just found right here. So let's put a negative 13 over 8 right there. And then let's plug in our x1 value right here. What's our x1 value? Negative 5. Like, where am I getting this x1 value from? From the coordinate. X1 is negative 5. So I'm going to plug a negative 5 right in here. And this is a y1. What's my y1? My y1 is 6. So put a 6 right there. And that's it. That is your point slope form equation. Oh yeah, let's change to a plus plus. That way it's nicer. So they want all three forms. Here's our first form, point slope. Okay, point slope is y minus 6 equals negative 13 over 8 parenthesis x plus 5. That is it right there, point slope. That wasn't that bad, right? Okay. Now, how am I going to change this to other forms? Well, first of all, if you notice your other forms, so far we have it in point slope form, which has parentheses. Your other forms don't have parentheses. So for sure, you need to get rid of the parentheses. So I would start by rewriting it. Okay, you could get rid of the parentheses by distributing the negative 13 over 8 times x and negative 13 over 8 times 5. Obviously, distributing negative 13 over 8, that's kind of challenging, huh? So wouldn't it be easier if we weren't distributing a fraction? So, I mean, if for like sometimes you're going to end up with like a 3 right here. That's great. Distribute the 3. Sometimes a 5, distribute the 5. Right here we have a disgusting negative 13 over 8. Let's not even mess with distribution of that fractions. Let's get rid of that fraction. How can you get rid of a fraction? Multiplying everything by the denominator of the fraction that you want to get rid of. So we're going to multiply everything by what? 8. So you're going to go times 8 times 8 times 8, which cancels out, and you don't mess with these guys. Now you're probably thinking, well, didn't you say multiply everything by 8? Yeah, but whatever you do to this outside guy, it's like if you do it to the inside guys because of the distributive property that's going to happen anyway. Does that make sense? Okay, so multiply everything by 8. Here's my new equation. 8y minus 48 equals negative 13, parenthesis x plus 5. And now you could distribute the negative 13 times x and get a negative 13x, distribute negative 13 times 5. On a calculator, that would be negative 65. Bring down the equal sign, bring down the 8y, bring down the minus 48. And now at this point, you have the option of getting the x over here to this side and the number over here to that side. That would make it standard form. Or you have the option of moving the 48 over here and then dividing by 8 to get in slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. So which one do you guys want to do? Y equals mx plus b, or moving the x's to one side and this number to the other side? Okay, so going for standard form then, right? Let's move the x over. So plus 13x and plus 13x, which you can't really do, so you're just going to rewrite it. 13x plus 8y minus 48 equals negative 65. So now all we need to do, so we're going to get rid of the 48 by adding 48 to both sides, plus 48 here, plus 48 over there. And you're going to end up with 13x plus 8y equals negative 65 plus 48. So that's a negative 17 right here. And yes, this is now standard form. Standard. Now, this is definitely the hardest question there is, right? If you understand what I'm doing here, you understand anything in this chapter so far, okay? So we have so far gotten the points that they gave us. We use the slope formula. Once you have the slope and a point, we went with point slope form, and then we got rid of the fraction to be able to distribute the negative 13, and then we chose to get the x's and the y's on the left side and the number by itself on the right side. That's standard form. The only other form that we need is slope-intercept form, getting y by itself. So what would I do to this equation to get y by itself? Yeah, subtract the 13x. And you know what? I'm going to show my work over here. I'm going to rewrite it. 13x plus 8y equals negative 17. And if I want to change it to slope-intercept form, I'm going to have to get the y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 13x, subtract 13x. I will have 8y equaling negative 13x minus 17. And for my final step, I'd have to divide by 8, divide by 8, divide by 8. And that is y equals negative 13 over 8 with an x minus 17 over 8. Now, this is really ugly. That's because I just made up this problem as I created it right now. But it's still in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. It crosses the b value at a little bit more than negative 2. So like or a little bit less than negative 2, like negative 2 point something. So there's my slope-intercept form equation. So I took 2 coordinates and wrote the equation in all 3 forms. So of course, the success criteria on the wall right there is written this way to help you remember. If they give you 2 points, start with the slope. Once you have the slope and you have a point, you could go with point slope form. And once you have it in point slope form, it's really easy to change it to either of the other two forms. All you got to do is distribute the m to get rid of the parentheses, and then get y by itself if you want it in slope intercept form, or move the x and the y to the left side of the equal sign to get it in standard form. Let's all take a look at the worksheet 4.3 WSPM. And again, I took this picture from the wall. It has everything you need: the slope formula, the point slope form, the slope intercept form, the standard form. And it depends what they ask you for. On this one, this worksheet, they're working on point slope form specifically. So if I give you number 1, and they say write an equation in point slope form, obviously they want it in this form. So the formula is y2 or y minus y1 equals m parenthesis x minus x1. So do we know our m value? Yes, we do. Do we know our x1, y1? Yes, we do. So we plug it in. Y minus y1 happens to be -2 equals m, which is 3, parenthesis x minus x1, which happens to be a -1. And that is your point slope form equation. Okay, y plus 2 equals 3, parenthesis x plus 1. Now, that's the form they wanted. That's it. We're done. That's your form. Now, if they wanted you to change this to slope intercept, then you would just have to get rid of the parentheses by distributing, right? So this is for fun, right? Like, this is not part of the instructions, but you could distribute 3 times x is 3x, 3 times 1 is 3, and equal sign, and then the y plus 2 comes down, and then you could get the y by itself by subtracting 2 and subtracting 2, and you'll get your slope-intercept form equation, y equals 3x plus 1. But then again, you wouldn't even do that if they gave you the graph, because to write it in y equals mx plus b form, all you have to do is identify that the b value is 1 and that the m value is what they gave you right there, 3, by rising 1, 2, 3, and over 1. So if you knew that the m is 3 and the b is 1, your slope-intercept form equation would be y equals 3x plus 1. Okay, and you could easily change this to standard form. They didn't ask for that. Anyways, this whole worksheet is great practice in practicing all these different forms. Like, for example, the second part says rewrite it in standard form. Standard form is like no parentheses, so you distribute, move the x to the left side, move the number to the right side. The answers are posted on last week's post on Google Classroom. Over here, writing it in slope-intercept form, distribute, get y by itself by adding 4, and you have it in slope-intercept form. Please practice this. We also have this worksheet from Monday, and I wanted you to go back and do numbers 13 through 18 in all 3 forms. So if we look at 13 through 18, they're all coordinates. And on every one of these, you're going to find the slope first, and then you're going to use that slope with the first point to write it in point slope form, and then you could change it to slope intercept and standard. Again, please do this, work on it, and watch the videos from last week. Maybe it'll help you out.